Welcome to Season 3 of The Spiritually Curious Therapist, the podcast for mental health professionals, healers, and seekers who believe that true healing happens at the intersection of psychotherapy, nervous system science, and holistic body-centered wisdom. I'm your host, Jody Silverman, licensed therapist, Reiki master and teacher, and all-around consciousness guide. I'm here to explore how we integrate the clinical with the intuitive, the evidence-based with the energetic, and the psychological with the soulful. Each week, we will dive into practices, frameworks, and conversations that support deep healing, both for ourselves and the people we serve. And just a quick note, while I'm a licensed therapist, this podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only and is not a substitute for therapy. So let's get curious about the body, the nervous system, the heart, and the wisdom that lives within it all. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Spiritually Curious Therapist. Today we have Joseph Drumheller. Joseph is the founder of JDH Academy and has worked as a clinical hypnotherapist since 1991. 6 of those years he spent perfecting his craft by working in the Peace Health Cancer Center on the campus of St. Joseph's Hospital in Bellingham, Washington. Joseph has performed well over 2,000 private hypnotherapy sessions, helped hundreds of students complete their clinical hypnotherapy certification, and has over 20,000 students in more than 40 online courses. He's also a 4-time award-winning author with books for grown-ups and kids. Joseph was also born with a deep spiritual connection to nature, which led him into a career as a mineral exploration geologist in the first half of his life. He still spends plenty of time playing outside, usually whitewater kayaking. Joseph, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about your journey and spiritual quantum energy, which seems to be your main gig these days.
Yeah, it's a hot button topic these days. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
So,
Tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you
okay.
do, and how you got here, because it seems like you've had a lot of different journeys along the way.
Yeah, so my journey begins, is a spiritual journey from the beginning. And so back in 1991, I went for a clinical hypnotherapy session as a client. And my very first session just totally blew me out of the water and had just some profound mystical experiences that had extremely profound effects on my life over a period of about 3 years. I went through like what I would call a 3-year spiritual awakening process. And so from the beginning, I was hooked. And so that would triggered or probably brought to was the birth of my life purpose. So what I do is not really a career, but it's definitely a calling of what I've been called to do since 1991. And so for about 10 years, I just kind of played around with hypnotherapy. I was more interested in I got certified at that time in 91, but I was still working as a geologist and I was very interested in this stuff and I was doing it more for my own personal growth, and I was like, helping other people on their path a little bit. And then in 2002, I moved to Bellingham, Washington, and I wasn't really doing hypnotherapy per se as a therapist. And I went to volunteer at the hospital just because I wanted to do something. And then something incredible happened there. I went to the volunteer office, and when I told them that I did hypnotherapy, they directly sent me to the cancer unit. And so I had no intention of working with cancer patients. And I spent the next 6 years doing hypnotherapy with cancer patients. And so at that point, that's when I started to become a healer because my chops were really getting honed at that point. And then as I was working at the cancer unit, I went to this organization in India because I've heard of spiritual awakenings and stuff and connection to the divine and all that and stuff. And so as I was working as a hypnotherapist in the cancer unit, I knew that there was one step further that I wasn't able to access, like this other divine energy, they called it at that time. And so I went to this organization in India and I went through some week-long programs and they said that they would open me up to this energy. And I thought, okay, well, it kind of sounds like a cult, but I want to try it anyway. And they delivered on the goods. And so I went through a major spiritual awakening, and I could start to feel energy coming through my body. And I was working at the cancer unit at that time, and so I was able to start to run the energy through my body with cancer patients and stuff. And so when I began at the cancer unit, I would call myself a hypnotherapist. And then after I went through the training stuff in India, I say that's when I became a healer. So it was kind of a progressive journey. Each spiritual awakening experience I had, was very disruptive in my personal life as this new energy comes through. So things that are with you at that time, if they're not aligning with the new higher vibration that you're stepping into, those things are going to fall away. And for me, it was a couple of marriages. So that was difficult yet profound, and creativity was all bursting out at the same time and everything like that. So when I left the cancer unit, then I was definitely committed to my healing path as a healer and started doing online courses and was really surprised at how rapidly it grew to how many people were actually interested. And so I made about 40 courses. My most popular courses are a clinical hypnotherapy training course. So it's a certification course. I have like, I don't know, thousands of students in that. And then I have an energy healing certification course. And then I have all sorts of hypnotherapy online courses for specific issues such as cancer, unworthiness, abandonment, et cetera, et cetera. And then, so I was doing this stuff. And then what happened in 2023, so I had a small group of colleagues that we'd get together and meditate, maybe once a month or so. And so in December of 2023, we were meditating together and this new energy came through. It's something I had never experienced it before. And it's like, and I had enough experience at that time. And I thought, oh my goodness, what is this? And so we were meditating on specific issues. I remember, like, I think one was on abundance. And so, and I could feel this gurgling going up and down my chakra system. It's like, God, this is bizarre. It's like, and then so we did on abundance, and like, within the next week, I got an unexpected check from the government for $11,000. And so I thought, huh, maybe we should try that again.
I love it.
So we did it again a couple more times. The next time, instead of having something great happen, everyone's personal issues blew up on them. So everything that everyone had suppressed in their subconscious actually exploded on them, and we had to work through it. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, we're onto something. We got onto some powerful medicine here, and so we did it again one more time. And I just remember the third time was as equally as powerful, as more of a personal experience for me at that time. And so at that point, I thought, okay, we've been given a gift here. We've been given this is something has come through, and I wanted to check if it was really legit or not. And so
Mhm.
what I did, I started doing free sessions with people in silence. So all we would do, I'd get on people on WhatsApp and we would meditate in silence together for 10 minutes in silence. There was no interaction at all, in terms of like talking to each other or seeing each other. And we just sit and let the energy come through. So I did that with about 30 people over about a 60-day period, and everyone had some sort of significant experience. Some were positive, some were challenged, but everyone had an impact. So I thought, okay, we have something that's dropped into our lap, but what are we going to do with it? So at that point, I felt like, okay, I felt a sense of responsibility. Quite honestly, I thought, okay, we've been given something. What are we going to do with it? What are we going to do? So I developed an online meditation group, a global meditation group. And so what we do, we meet, it's been going on for over a year now, so it's continuing to go. So we sit in silence for 5 minutes on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays at 8 o'clock a.m. Pacific time. And we have another one, we just started another one that's in just once a week. And so what we do is we sit in silence with a particular intention. I'll just like chat something on WhatsApp. People will drop in with their emojis from all over the world. It's in silence, and we just feel the energy coming through, and you can actually feel it coming through in a group context. It's quite a phenomenal experience. And so that's why the group hasn't died yet. It's like it's continuing. It grew really fast to about 120, and then it kind of hit a wall in February, and it's plateaued. But the people that are coming, there's a really strong core of people that are coming because they're experiencing something. And I noticed that we're starting to see a tick up in things. So there's a tick up in enrollment. So, things like that go through their phases and whatnot. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. It's been a very creative process. So as I've gone through each awakening stuff, my creative channels have just exploded open. So when I first started in my very first session, I remember I went to see the lady, and I had read an article on hypnotherapy at some bookstore before I went to see her. And she said, "Why did you come to see me?" And I said, "Well, I saw this really cool article on hypnotherapy and I just wanted to try it." I was in this little hick town in like in the middle of northeastern Washington, a little tiny town. And so being a quite intuitive woman, she said, "No, why are you really here?" And so I stopped and I thought, I don't know. It's like, and then I said something that it's like one of those things. It doesn't happen very often in life, but you say something and you can't believe you said it, or you found like
Yeah.
somebody else was talking through you or something.
Yeah.
And I said, I feel like I have a block to my creativity. And so I was a young geologist at that time. I was married, had a couple kids, had no creative inclinations whatsoever, came from a family that was very uncreative. And then I go through this session and she's doing all these hypnotherapy techniques in this deep meditative state. And she stops the session and I'm going right in the middle. She just stopped the session and I'm going, yeah, that's kind of weird. What's up? And she asked me the question, what does the word abandonment mean to you? you know, and I just exploded into tears and I could not stop crying. And, it's like, and I started seeing one episode of abandonment, one after the other, like in these visions that were coming at me like a speeding train down like a train track. And I just had a major meltdown. And so after the session, I was walking out to my car and I realized a couple things. I realized one, first of all, I was super embarrassed because I just had this major meltdown in front of somebody I don't even know. I didn't know what I was doing, and then I realized that I have stumbled onto some really powerful medicine here, and I don't really know what it is. And so I went home, and within the next week, I went through a very unexpected divorce. My wife left me for someone else. I kind of lost my children at that time. And then I was working in this job in a rural town in northeastern Washington. I lost my job. And so I lost my family, I lost my job. And then I moved to my hometown, which is Spokane. I moved back to Spokane. And, I started playing bass guitar. I
Mm.
started writing books. What else? And I started doing artwork. And so over the course of the next 3 years, I was having all these mystical experiences and all this creativity was just coming out like crazy. And then I realized down the road that, when I said I had a block to my creativity in that session, is that in that session, I was going to get pushed into that creativity because that was why I was there in that session. And then I started to see the results of what happens when you work in the subconscious mind. So when you go to work in the subconscious mind, it's going to go to work to bring you whatever you intend on. So whatever your healing intention is. So mine, subconscious, I didn't know, was to become more creative, and that's what happened. I just had to let go of everything that was in the way, which was my job, my place I lived, my family, it's all that stuff.
Yeah. What I'm wondering as I'm listening to you is do you believe that going to that session, having that experience, identifying that block,
Hmm.
recognizing your abandonment stuff,
Hmm.
and processing it in whatever way that you did in that session then impacted the field, which then created the series of events with your wife leaving and you getting fired so that you could open up to these other parts of you. But I'm just wondering whether th- part of this process is that when we make shifts in our subconscious, the field is affected and things start to fall away as a result of that.
Right. So you asked me if I believed that. And so I would say not really. I would say after the years of doing this stuff, I know it.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
how that's
Yeah.
how it works. Yeah, that's how the system works. So when you align yourself to higher vibrational energy, whatever is not in alignment with that new resonating vibration that you're at is not going to resonate with that. So it's
Hmm.
more likely to drop off. And so one thing that can be difficult during like a major spiritual awakening is that you need to have the courage to let go,
Hmm.
you know, and step into the new person that you are now, that you've changed to be already. Because when you change on the inside, it creates a vibration, and that's going to resonate out to your external world and be reflected back to you in the events of your life. And so, and in hypnotherapy sessions, that's what I do with people. Now, they're not that dramatic, they're usually not. So for some reason, I have a tendency to go through these big cathartic experiences. But my job as a hypnotherapist is to take people through similar experiences much more gracefully and gently, with more awareness and more, well, I can't really say control because you can't really control the whole experience, but much more awareness and let the people know what they're in for and be a support for them to go through the process. Most people know on some level anyway.
Yeah, I would imagine that that's really important because what's arriving for me due to the work that I do, I work with a lot of relational trauma and
Mhm.
trauma bonding and really helping people to loosen those threads that are keeping them bonded to relationships and dynamics and patterns that are no longer serving them.
And
And
that can be really tough.
exactly, because
Yeah.
what happens is like our nervous system, right? Like just on a physiological level, which also speaks to the subconscious, goes into this counter constriction where it's like, no, that's like, this is what's familiar to me. We're staying here and we're coming back. I'm imagining your wife leaving you, just as an example, or you losing your job back then, and what that must have, even though looking back, you can see the bigger picture, what that must
Yeah.
have been like for you in the moment. And
Yeah. Well, yeah.
support other people who might have those types of experiences.
Yeah, so for me, I've gone through those similar experiences twice, so twice in my life. And so both times, two things were going on at the same time. One, it was absolutely devastating, and the other one, it was like incredibly enlightening. So like all this energy and creativity and all this incredible stuff was going on, yet you're still going to have to process all this grief and difficult emotions that are coming up due to loss and things that you really don't want to go through, So, but on some deeper level, if if you really sit and are honest with yourself, you're going to have the courage to let go of that stuff because you know this is where what is going to sustain you and what is exciting and what is bringing fulfillment and meaning into your life. So, yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm imagining as well is like the need to stay in that and get to the other side versus bypassing whatever grief or pain comes along with.
Yeah, so if you stuff your emotions, if you don't deal with your emotions and your trauma and your grief and you stuff it back into the subconscious mind, this is where we get into how the subconscious mind works. And so emotions are born to be experienced. That's their only job. That is it. And so on a subconscious level, all of us have a natural inclination and a tendency to avoid unpleasant emotions. And we do it on a subconscious level. So we don't want to feel our trauma, our anger, our pain. And so what we do subconsciously, we don't know that we're doing it. We avoid those emotions. And so what happens when we avoid those emotions is that they get stuck or stuffed into our subconscious mind. And there they live like little entities. All they want to do is to be experienced. And so what they'll do is they'll start to create situations in our lives where we can experience that pain or that trauma. And so people will come into our lives being unknowing props in our one person play. And what we'll start to see are repeating patterns of the same pain over and over and over again. The cast of characters has changed, but the situations remained exactly the same. So when you have those repeating patterns of pain, that's when you know you have suppressed emotions in your subconscious. And that's when hypnotherapy or any type of meditative healing can be really powerful because what you do when you go into a relaxed state of mind, when you go into that relaxed meditative state, the invisible barrier, which people call the critical faculty of the mind, lets down and the subconscious mind opens up when you go into those relaxed states. And then those emotions or whatever are there exposed, and you can essentially just ask them to leave, and they do.
Yeah.
It's really healing can happen in the blink of an eye, and it can be very, very simple. You just it just there's an element of awareness and it's different for everyone how the process works. It's not like a miraculous quick fix and stuff like that. You got to be involved in your own healing process and all that. So
Yeah, it's one of those things that is like in some ways conceptually is simple, but it's not easy. And there's just just
healing always takes courage. It
yeah,
always takes courage because you have to face yourself.
yep,
No,
yeah.
you have to face what's going on inside of you, and it's so easy to try and run away from that stuff, but when you do, it never goes away. It's always there.
It's all I want to come back to something that you said because
Sure.
I really love this. So people come into your life and they're unknowingly prompts in your one person play.
Right.
And I say some version of this a lot with the folks that I work with in psychotherapy because a lot of times people will come in for healing and the tendency is to point
Blame
fingers and
somebody
blame
else. Yeah.
everybody else, right? So can you say more about that and how you introduce that to people, how you kind of hold that field? Because
Okay, so let's take someone, let's use an example, a hypothetical. Let's say someone was raised in a family where they were kind of berated or put down all the time, okay? Constant throughout their whole life. Just as a kid, that's all they knew. I'm not worthy. I'm no good. I'm nothing, nothing, nothing. And so what happens is that, say you go out into the world of relationships, well, you may start to attract like narcissistic, you know, partners who have no value for you whatsoever. They gaslight you. They treat you like crap, they use you as a toy to play with. And that is just feeding whatever your call it a belief, whatever unresolved emotions that you have inside that continually play into that. So if you don't deal with those, if those emotions aren't healed and dealt with, those situations are going to repeat over and over again. So the one real way, like in relationships in particular, okay, so you break up from this lousy person, they're you're finally free, you get away from them, and then you get into your next relationship and it's exactly the same.
Mhm.
So that tells you, okay, it's not about the other person. It's not about the other person because the same thing's happening to you over and over and over again. So that means a really great idea to get some help on healing that stuff on the inside.
Yeah,
And then once you do release those things, those repeating patterns stop and you have more energy freed up to be like in a positive relationship instead of a negative one. And of course, there's going to be lots of learning of behavior patterns that go along the way, right? So,
absolutely. Like part of that is like having the space to actually do something different and
mhm,
to recognize that. And you've used the word awareness a number of times, and so I just want to reinforce that as well because
mhm,
step one is always like bringing what's in the subconscious into conscious awareness,
right.
right? And then from there we can do some of the healing work, but if we don't know it's there, we can't address it.
Yeah. So this is one thing even I fell into. So my first marriage was pretty dysfunctional, very, very dysfunctional. So it was difficult to go through, but I became aware of my inner workings and my patterns and releasing stuff. And then I got into another relationship and I could feel going right back into the same pattern. And I stopped. And that's where it takes awareness. I said, no, I'm not doing this. And so that is common in subconscious healing too. What will happen is that the repeating pattern will come up to you in your face and it's like it's challenging you. Are you going to make a different decision or not?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important for people to understand in terms of why is this happening to me again? Well, the good news is you're recognizing it,
Yes.
right? And so now what do you want to do about it?
Yeah, and then if you can really get out of the blame somebody else situation, catch yourself when you're doing that. If you're pointing your finger at somebody, you got three more fingers pointing back at you, so
Yeah. Yeah.
everything this is kind of a hard truth to accept, but everything that happens in your life is your creation.
Yeah.
Everything, so that can be reflected back. It'll always be reflected back to you. And as you go up the higher vibrational ladder, you're going to attract more and more higher vibe people who are more aware and stuff like that. So as within, so without. It always starts inside.
Always starts inside.
Yeah.
How do you talk about that with folks, whether they're clients or people who you're teaching in such a way that people don't feel like we're saying this is your fault?
That's great. That's a great question. So
Yeah.
this is what I do in all my sessions with everybody. So I never tell anybody anything, really. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychotherapist. So I'm a hypnotherapist. I will always ask them the same question. So I'll ask them, okay, so what is the difficulties you're feeling? And they'll say, well, we'll use like a relationship. Well, I'm getting my relationship and I always feel like I'm really stuck or something like that. Okay. So great. I'll say, okay, so you feel stuck. Okay. The next question I'll ask them is where do you feel that in your body?
Mhm.
And almost everyone will stop and go, oh, they never thought of it before. And they'll go, well, I feel that in my heart. And so, okay, great. That's all I need to know to do the session because what I know is that you have a subconsciously suppressed emotion called stuck that is attached to your heart chakra. That's
Mm.
it. That is it. And so it's going to be related probably to some trauma you had in your past. We won't get into that in the first session. Great. So what we're going to do is just go into a relaxed state and we're going to release that feeling of stuckness and everything that's attached to it. And so people will have major shifts after a first session because whatever they've been carrying their whole life is now gone. It might not be, it's probably not completely gone. You're going to have to go into deeper layers of awareness and healing, but it's really simple. Wherever you have a repeating pattern, there's going to be an emotion that is associated with it. and you're going to feel where that emotion is in your body. It's always going to be, well, not always, but mostly it's going to be related to somewhere in your chakra system or in your energy field. Sometimes you'll feel it all around your body. Like people can be really depressed and it feels like it's everywhere. Or sometimes it can feel outside of your body too, if it's like in your energy field somewhere. So, but yeah, so finding the root of the pain is always very easy. It only takes a couple questions. And then I don't have to say, like you're creating this, or it's because it's something in your past or something like that, where people can feel guilty about that. It's just like, no, we're dealing with this, thing that you're not aware of, and it's okay that you're not aware of it because nobody's aware of it. Everyone has these repeating patterns, and so we're just going to let those things go. And then after we do that, we get into the quantum energy thing, and this is where the energy comes through. So we release the bad, and now we're going to bring in the good. And so
Mm.
now we bring in the energy to raise their personal vibration, which is aligned with deeper levels of healing. So that's very simple too. So that those things can have a really powerful impact on people's lives, and getting them to be the fullest version who they're meant to be.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that you have an awareness that we create our own reality,
Hmm.
and you hold that in the work that you do without directly saying, well, you created this, so you're the only one who can fix it.
Right. So yeah, so
Yeah.
things you hear a lot about people say with healers is that they hold space.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's really true. So you go into this relaxed state of mind, and you can actually kind of feel like this. You're in this bubble or something. And so you're going into this bubble of healing, because I have a lot of experience now. I can take people in this bubble and I can help them what it is they want to heal with, So but they're actually doing the work. I'm a facilitator. They're doing their own work. So that's really important to understand. First of all, because it's the truth. And then when you become aware of it, it gives you a certain level of personal empowerment and
Abs-
awareness and
Yeah,
growth and all those things. Yeah. So,
absolutely. I'm a Reiki assisted psychotherapy practitioner as
oh,
well. So like
awesome.
that's the hallmark of bringing Reiki into the psychotherapy room is just holding that space and trusting and allowing and
Yeah.
all of
Yeah. So Reiki is powerful. It's a very powerful tool. And to get the full benefit out of Reiki, it's helpful if the client can have some sort of awakening experience in the process.
that.
Because you have all those layers of resistance built up, and you need to work through those, or for the Reiki to come in fully. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, beautiful. So, what's running through my mind as we're talking about all of this is how do you connect what we're talking about here with the idea of spirituality, soul evolution? Like, we're talking about higher vibrations, we're talking about quantum energy, we're talking about creating our own reality. And these are all things that are very significant in kind of the spiritual metaphysical realm as well. And so in your awareness,
Hmm.
how do you connect what you're doing to overall soul development in
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
okay.
100%. So when we talk about the subconscious mind and suppressed emotions that we hold in our subconscious mind, okay, those are blocks and barriers to experiencing what we would call the quantum energy field or the divine energy or something. And so when those blocks and resistances are released and let go of, then the subconscious mind becomes a conduit for this higher vibrational energy. So it's a natural progression and process. Usually at some point, for people who are awakened spiritually, I guess you'd say, everyone that I know of and myself, I can say for sure that there needs to be an awakening event.
Mm,
So, there has to be something that happens that allows your energy system and your nervous system and stuff to open up to this higher vibrational energy. And so what I've noticed in my life, and I take people through like workshops where we go through the experience of it. So, but in my experience, you cannot make it happen.
mm,
So
mhm,
it has to come from a higher intelligence. Okay. And when it happens and how it happens is not up to you. Okay, it's up to this higher intelligence. Now, there are some things you can do to stack the odds in your favor or to prepare yourself for a spiritual awakening. And the first one is desire. If you want it to happen, it will.
mm,
It
mhm.
will. God is not stingy. Okay. If you want it to happen, it will happen. Okay. It's not going to happen the way you think it's going to happen. It's not going to happen on your time, on your timing. It's going to happen its own way in its own time. And then there are certain things you can do to prepare yourself to raise your personal vibration to to put yourself more in alignment with the energy that wants to come through. So the first thing is meditation. You need to go into a relaxed state to open yourself up to the conduit of the subconscious. Okay, so that's needs to happen. And then there are certain meditations that you can do. It's better to live in these things, but you can do absolute meditation techniques that will raise your higher vibration. And that's going into the four pillars of spirituality. And those are compassion, self-acceptance, forgiveness, and gratitude. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually have workshops where I take people through the experience of each of those virtues to open them up to experience higher vibrational energy. So those are the four pillars of spirituality. They carry very, very high vibration, and then if you can actually go into a meditative state and not just, think of those but actually go into the state where you're resonating with the vibration of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So your energy is going to go up. It's going to go up a notch. And then it's even better yet after the experience is if you can live in those virtues. So if you can live in a compassionate state or live a real tough one for many people is to live in a state of self-acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
where you accept yourself as you are with all your perceived flaws and imperfections. That's huge because everybody, I mean, you're a therapist, right? Everyone can be clinically diagnosed with something, right? Everybody's got something. And so,
Absolutely.
and so to accept those things about yourself and to love those things is a challenge for everybody. Most of us berate ourselves or put ourselves down or think we're not worthy on some level. So if we can accept ourselves for as we are with our imperfections, I'm not talking about being like a narcissist either, that's like not that, but truly accept yourself as you are with all your imperfections, that's going to take your vibration up a notch. And then genuinely forgiving people. So that just means letting go of a negative relationship. So when
Mm.
we need to forgive somebody, most people think relation forgiveness is like the priest and the confessor, I forgive you, you're absolved. And then after you forgive someone like that, you're still angry or hurt by them. So forgiveness, in my take on it, is a deeper dynamic of healing. So what it means is that you're letting go of the energetic connection of a negative relationship. Doesn't mean you're condoning someone's negative behavior or harmful behavior. It means you're letting them go out of your space, and that's a huge thing of personal empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you claim your power and you're free. You're free. And so that takes your vibration up a notch. And then the last one is gratitude. That's just pure in of itself. Genuine gratitude, you can't touch it. It's like it's straight from the divine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the most powerful one of them all. Just be grateful for whatever. Like at this moment, grateful for the interview.
Well, for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's reminding me of heart math, which is a
Oh,
practice in which there's one of the techniques is called quick coherence. And you start with heart-centered breathing, and then you intentionally activate one of these higher vibration emotions.
yeah.
And it is the challenge of, as you were saying, and I think it's really important, it's a difference between saying, oh yeah, I'm grateful for blah, 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 versus feeling the vibration of that in your heart center. And it sounds simple, but it's not.
May I share a gratitude story? This is like this
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so this is goes back to my second spiritual awakening time. Okay, this is I had a when I went to India and went through all that stuff. So I got divorced at that time, and I really did not want to get divorced at that time. My marriage I thought was pretty good. So, but the vibrations came in, that wasn't going to happen, and so I lived in Bellingham, Washington, and I would drive 45 minutes out of town to the base of this mountain called Mount Baker. It's one of the Cascade volcanoes. It's huge. It's like a 10,000 foot peak with snow on it. It's like just they're magical, the Cascade volcanoes. And so I'd go up to this little town called Glacier, Washington. It's a town of about 100 or 200 people. And there's a little coffee shop there I'd like to go to. And then I'd go for hikes around the mountain and stuff. And so there's this one trail that nobody knew about. It went from town for about half to a quarter mile down to this river called the North Fork of the Nooksack River. It's like pristine glacial river. It's very pretty. Nobody knew that trail because it wasn't marked. The only people that knew the trail were people that lived in town. Okay, so nobody knew it. And so I would go to this little coffee shop and then I would walk down this trail. And and no one was ever on it. And during the walks from the town down to the river, I would be overcome with feelings of sadness. Just
Mm.
just, just grief. So, excuse me.
Yeah, take your time.
And so what the river and these trees and this little forest did is that as I walked down the trail, this these painful feelings would lift off of me. It was a healing forest. It would take the grief and the sadness out of me. And if I put my feet into the river, this is another thing about healing with nature, is that if you put your feet in water, like running water, it'll take your emotions away. Or not your emotions, but it'll take your hurt away if you ask it to. And the cleaner and more pristine the water is, the better. So this was a pristine glacial river, and it would just take the grief and sadness just away. And then I would go back feeling rejuvenated and refreshed. And so during this period of time, I went back to this little trail a number of times, like, and the same thing would happen over and over again. And so the following year later, I moved away. I moved from Bellingham to Spokane, and every year I would go back to Glacier just to because I would kayak the river, but also just to visit this magical little place. And the first year I went back, I went back this little trail, and I was feeling fine. And as I was walking down the trail, I was overcome. I wasn't even thinking about it. All of a sudden, I was just overcome with this feeling of gratitude.
Hmm.
I was so mm, grateful to the trees and to the river that had helped me through a very difficult time. And then as I was walking down, there's this little bend in the trail, and I could hear someone coming in the other direction. And that was weird because I'd never ever seen anyone on this trail. And as I passed this person, it was a young woman. She must have been maybe 30-ish. And she had like looked to be a 3 or 4 year old kid on her lap. And or not on her lap, but on her hip. And so as we passed, we exchanged pleasantries, and I said something like, "Oh, it looks like you got your hands full today," or something like that. And so we passed, and I went down to the river. And as I walked out onto the river, there was at low water, so I walked out onto a cobble bank, and right in front of me was this rock that was split down the middle in half and open like a book. And I'm a geologist. I've cracked open a lot of rocks, and I never in my life seen a rock crack so perfectly down the middle. It was the size of an ostrich egg. And so I looked at it, and mirror images on this rock looked like the Madonna with child. And so I'm going, oh my God, I just had a visitation with, and so I
Hmm.
looked up the river, I looked down the river, and I go, oh my God. So I took this rock and I ran as fast as I could up this trail because I wanted to catch this woman with this child. And I wanted to say thank you. I just wanted to say thank you. And I know this is going to sound crazy and stuff to her, but I didn't care. And so I got up to I couldn't catch him on the trail. And when we got to the trailhead where it started, there was no car there. So they couldn't have just driven off. And she was carrying this heavy kid, and there was nowhere they could go in this little one street town. And so I went into every business and every shop trying to find them, and they just vanished. They were not to be found. And I still have the rock. You want to see the rock? I mean, this is it'll take a sec.
Yeah, I'd love to see
Hang
that.
on, just a sec.
For those of you who are listening, Joseph's going to get the rock. What an amazing, profound story. And also a lesson in just really paying attention and noticing what shows up in our field and in our awareness and paying attention to synchronicities as well.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
In any case,
Oh, okay. So pull it back a little bit. There you go. Wow.
isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. So for those of you who are listening, it is this like perfect impression.
Yeah, it's amazing. So
Yeah.
So I have a ton of stories like that.
Hmm.
So when you get into this like mystical world of like this higher vibrational energy, just really surreal things can start to happen. And so as you get introduced to that kind of meaningful stuff, it's really some things can come up that, am I delusional or is this really happening? So that's a very big question in spirituality that you need to ask. And so So there's pretty simple rules to follow. Am I delusional? It's a good question. The thing is, you want to ask yourself is that genuine spiritual experiences, to be surreal, outlandish, they will always have a positive impact on your life.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships will improve, finances will improve, you'll feel happier, more well-adjusted, whereas delusional stuff, just the opposite. They'll take you, things will become comfortable, you become confused, you get depressed, stuff like that. So that's one kind of rule of thumb with spiritual experiences that you want to ask yourself is, am I delusional? Because you're going to run up against that at some point if you get into spirituality, So, as these visions I had, am I crazy?
Absolutely. People ask that all the time.
Yeah.
Is that real? What's wrong with me? Yeah. So, okay. So I love that rubric. So a genuine spiritual experience will lead to a positive outcome.
Yeah. It'll bring new people into your life who are very positive.
Mhm.
You'll be more well adjusted, even though what happened in the beginning might seem kind of outlandish or surreal. It'll always bring you back to a better and more well adjusted life. So things will get
Beautiful.
better. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really appreciating all of this because I think it just again speaks to and reinforces, and I was just kind of talking out loud as you went to go get that rock, the importance of awareness and paying attention
Hmm.
and appreciating synchronicities that show up in our lives and having kind of like that deeper experience or exchange with the environment. Because
Hmm.
part of what you're describing in terms of, that whole story, there was a certain level of mindfulness and awareness and appreciation and gratitude and all of these higher vibration emotions, but also allowing your 3D existence to take it in.
Yeah. So going on a little thing, I was born with a very deep spiritual connection to nature, very
Hmm.
deep, and which led me to become a geologist and, travel the world in remote places and stuff like that, and still do nature things today. And one thing I've learned about nature, so nature works at a vibrational rate, okay? Technology is not matched to that at all. Okay, so what happens is that if we go out in nature and there's not, like traffic and noise and we don't have our technology with us and we start to slow down into the rhythm of nature,
Hmm.
s- things will start to happen. And what will start to happen is that you'll start to become into the awareness that there is a presence behind the 3D world. So, and this is where I think the native cultures got into like spirits and stuff, like earth spirits. And so, if you slow down, you'll become aware that there is this vibration or this presence behind the 3D world. And if you slow down and you listen, it will start to interact with you in meaningful ways. It will always let you know that it knows you are there. And so if you go into nature and you slow down, so for me, it happens with animals. I'll have like these unusual interactions or encounters with animals. And so, yeah, so that's just another aspect of spirituality is nature is a really, really deeply connected component to it. So, and it will interact with you. It always does.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I think we forget about that. We forget about how important nature is. And one of the things that you're reminding me of, and I've been having this conversation a lot lately with folks, is that the universe is self-organizing. And if we look at nature, I mean, nature takes care of itself. And that doesn't stop with us because we are a part of that. And
Hmm.
when we soften into that and surrender and let go, that's when we're fully supported. I think what you're talking about in terms of the interactions that
Yeah, and so humanity is going through this big evolutionary change right now. So I hope that a big part of that is going to be our reconnection to nature because we are so disconnected from nature now. It's like, we've really gone off the far end. So I hope that in our awareness and our awakening that we'll come back into connection and have more of a symbiotic relationship with our planet. So
yes,
yeah.
absolutely. So we have just a few minutes left, and I'm curious if there's anything more that we haven't touched on specific to quantum energy healing that you would like to share.
I think we're good. I think we're good. It's like just that if 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 people are interested in experiencing that, it is something that you can do. So, and then if you're involved in the healing arts, any capacity, I highly encourage you to take that gifts, that skills, or that interest up a level, because it's this non-invasive type of healing is going to become more mainstream and prominent as we move forward in the future. It's how we're evolving.
Yes, I agree 100%. And it's one of the things, again, that we talk about in Reiki assisted psychotherapy, that first and foremost is not, we don't talk about Reiki as a treatment per se, as much as we're inviting the energy into the healing space. And
Awesome.
that in and of itself, right, like creates a different environment.
Yeah, because if you use Reiki just as a treatment, it limits it. So if you open up to the energy of it, it's like it's going to come in any way it wants.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I love that. I love that. And so if people want to get in touch with you or
Oh,
find out more about your courses, and I'll put all of this in the show notes, but can just, yeah, let people know what
yeah.
you
So
have coming up or,
I have a website. It's called jdhacademy.org. And if you go to the homepage there, there's a little PDF you can download for free, you know, to if you want to start the journey. Or you can go to the top of the bar, the tabs on top, and there's one that says events, and we have a global meditation community that's free that you can join in. We would love to have you because well, I love it.
yeah,
And
I'm
we
really excited for
have
that.
you love it too.
I'm gonna go on and join that. That's awesome that you're making that available and really connecting people in
It's
that way.
that's another big part of, I think, our evolutionary journey now. We gotta start coming together because technology has gotten us so isolated, that we need to come together.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being
and
with me
great.
today.
Thank
I
you for having me. This
really,
has been fabulous.
yeah, appreciate you and all that you're doing.
Yeah, and you too. So thanks so much.
You're welcome.
And ciao.
Welcome to season 3 of The Spiritually Curious Therapist, the podcast for mental health professionals, healers, and seekers who believe that true healing happens at the intersection of psychotherapy, nervous system science, and holistic body-centered wisdom. I'm your host, Jody Silverman, licensed therapist, Reiki master and teacher, and all-around consciousness guide. I'm here to explore how we integrate the clinical with the intuitive, the evidence-based with the energetic, and the psychological with the soulful. Each week, we will dive into practices, frameworks, and conversations that support deep healing, both for ourselves and the people we serve. And just a quick note, while I'm a licensed therapist, this podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only and is not a substitute for therapy. So let's get curious about the body, the nervous system, the heart, and the wisdom that lives within it all.